The iPad Pro with an M2 chip in it sounds incredibly powerful, but just how capable is it actually? For me, the recent availability of DaVinci Resolve on iPad has been a bit of an awakening, because now we're talking industry standard professional software, and the iPad Pro is good enough to handle it. I've already made a video covering exclusively DaVinci Resolve on iPad, and in that video, you'll see that the setup is not just functional, it's actually performing incredibly well. Now, leaning a bit into the raw performance comparisons, I wanted to see how much more of an edge would the M2 chip give over the M1 in an iPad Pro. So I've got the 12.9-inch M2 iPad Pro against its predecessor, the 5th generation M1, running an export for a 5-minute heavily calibrated timeline in DaVinci Resolve. The M2 finished in 5 minutes and 56 seconds, way ahead of the M1, which clocked in at 10 minutes and 29 seconds. So a really fair upgrade in terms of performance. Out of curiosity, I also compared it against the M2 MacBook Air, just because it's also running on an M2 chip, and I was met with some pretty interesting results. The iPad Pro outperformed the MacBook Air. So in this comparison at least, the iPad Pro really does live up to its Pro name. My guess is the iPad was able to dissipate heat faster. It kind of makes sense when you look at it. The iPad's warm bits are more exposed to the air. Still nothing against the MacBook Air though. It still is one of my favorite laptops of all time. But for most filmmakers looking for a video editing laptop, it's more likely that we'll be leaning towards the new MacBook Pros because those things are simply on a whole other level. But the iPad Pro though, especially this 12.9-inch version, does make a lot of sense for video editing pros to own, and it's of course for that amazing display. Even if you do not intend to do your editing on the iPad itself, through Sidecar and Reference Mode, you can still take advantage of that insanely good mini LED HDR display. And when it comes to showing your work to clients, nothing beats handing them an iPad Pro with your footage on it. It's difficult to find standalone displays, which even come close to the one on this iPad. Factory calibrated color accuracy, P3 wide gamut, 120Hz, 1600 nits HDR, and this particular display even comes with a free iPad Pro stuck on it. But the feature that really makes the experience feel unique through this latest generation of M2 iPad Pros is definitely the hover feature when using the Apple Pencil. It's easily the defining feature for the M2 iPad Pros and also easily the most underestimated feature. I too thought that life would be indifferent with or without Apple Pencil Hover, but in certain use cases, it was enough to completely transform the iPad experience. When illustrating in Procreate, for example, you can see an exact representation of your brush size while hovering over your canvas. It's super neat for adjusting your brush size and being able to visualize what your stroke might look like before penning it down. You can even do things like hover a color over another one to see how they'll mix. But even if you don't do a lot of drawing on your iPad, you will still feel the presence of hover, the way icons interact as you approach or fly past them. It might not be the most functional, but it is super satisfying and it makes your iPad experience feel quite a lot more luxurious. It starts making a real difference though, when you're interacting with multi-level menus. Hovering over expandable items will go ahead and reveal the subsequent options. It doesn't just save you a tap, this actually makes a significant difference in speed when you're trying to look through menus for a specific item. I also stumbled upon one more use case where hover makes a massive difference, and that's when using Sidecar. Tapping your pencil on the display registers as a click. This means with just an Apple Pencil, you couldn't previously reposition the macOS cursor from the iPad without also clicking on something. Now, hovering over an active Sidecar session controls the cursor's position. This would definitely reduce the amount of handing back and forth between devices when using a setup with Sidecar, and these are just a few instances where hover really makes a difference. It always unexpectedly shows itself in a very intuitive way within apps, like how you can hover scrub above media in Resolve to preview them. So when I consider the iPad Pro a very capable device, it's beyond just a powerful chip stuck inside a touchscreen display. Well, first of all, it's a damn good display, along with a whole bunch of other things done very right in the form of a sheet that's only 6.5mm thick. In my opinion, this is one of the best pieces of tech in existence. You can be hard at work with it or sitting in bed watching YouTube on it. Either way, it will never feel out of place.